Good day, and thank you for joining us here as we explain parental alienation, what it is, and the long-term harmful effects that it causes. Our objective is to develop a 6-week series of informational videos for you to learn more about parental alienation and how it affects you or how it may affect you in your life. Many people say that children are resilient, that they bounce back. And while that may be true for the most part, that is most often not true for cases of parental alienation. Unfortunately, this is an irreparable abuse that permanently affects the long-term relationship of the alienated parent and child. It is not something we should overlook, and it is not something that is acknowledged often enough in situations of family violence and abuse.
My name is Andrea Wainer. I am a clinical social worker. I live in New York City. I have children. I have experienced parental alienation in my life, and I also work with people who have gone through or are undergoing the same. I understand child development from my work with children and families, and I understand also that parental alienation disrupts child development, and that as parents and as clinicians, we need to not only understand parental alienation, but also the developmental disruptions that happen. So one of the things that I'm looking at is the time in which a child experiences alienation and what that means for that child as they continue their development as an individual while experiencing this abuse of parental alienation, and helping parents to be able to identify the same and to work with their children in their unique situation, and at understanding the development and the life circumstances and experiences that will help contribute to healthy development while they repair and rebuild their new relationship with their child.
Just so that we all feel or have an understanding of how much these behaviors are common behaviors, how much these behaviors affect our lives, these toxic parental alienation behaviors, and how common it is for us to experience these things, these damaging things, the side effects of, and then hide it and feel shame because of it and turn it inwards. How common is that internationally, all over the world? How many people experience that? I'm trying to find the words. It's not working.
Oh, okay. Well, we know like the numbers are staggering, and unfortunately we can't really say, we can't give an exact number because the way this appears is not the way that it actually is, right? So we know like it's hidden. It's a hidden problem. So we know that annually 58,000 children are court ordered to live with the abuse or removed from the protective parent and put into the custody of the abusive parent. We know that every parent who is abusive to the other parent also alienates. So we know that 58,000 children at least are subjected to parental alienation. And when I say parental alienation, it also extends to grandparents and extended family. So we know that we have a number, and it's 58,000 children annually are subjected to parental alienation.
And now, is that just in the United States or is that globally?
Actually, I'm sorry, that's in the United States.
So that's one country, 58,000 children.
Yes.
So I'm going to say in Canada, it's probably the same. I found a great article to start with this week, and I'll post the link in the article in the information below. I'd like to start with reading a few pieces of information directly from it regarding the behaviors and side effects of parental alienation. And then I would like to get right into the meat and potatoes of our information that we're providing you here today. So the article is from the Psychiatric Times, and you can find it at www.psychiatrictimes.com. And it's called Treatment and Prevention of Parental Alienation. The way they put this article together was very easy for people to understand, for most, I think, to understand. It's not in an intensive intellectual language. However, it's language that speaks to us, that brings out the awareness that we've been through this, as it describes these common patterns, but it also gives tools that we can use in order to offset the damage. So not in an attacking way, but in a way that we can take control of with our own boundaries and how it affects us. So they get into 17 primary parental alienation strategies that fall into 5 general categories. And over the next 6 weeks, as we break down 18 different points of what parental alienation may look like, or the behaviors of, they're going to fall under these 5 categories as well. And the first is poisonous messages to the child about the targeted parent, in which he or she is portrayed as unloving, unsafe, and unavailable. The second is limiting contact and communication between the child and the targeted parent. The third is erasing and replacing the targeted parent in the heart and mind of the child. The fourth is encouraging the child to betray the targeted parent's trust. And then the fifth is undermining the authority of the targeted parent. Taken together, these parental alienation strategies foster a conflict and psychological distance between the child and the targeted parent. When one parent engages in these behaviors, they can be considered a toxic ex or toxic parent. Children who reject one parent to please the other are referred to as alienated, or as having the parental alienation syndrome. And when we speak about parental alienation syndrome over the next 6 weeks, it's with regard to the children experiencing it, but also the parent, the target parent experiencing it. Because as the parent is being harmed, this puts another layer of abuse onto the child. And we aren't recognizing that. And by preventing and stopping this easily avoidable parental alienation syndrome, we can actually prevent a further abuse to these children that we aren't even considering right now. Okay. They will express most, if not all, of the 8 behavior manifestations. The first being a campaign of denigration of the targeted parent. Second, weak, frivolous, or absurd reasons for the rejection of the targeted parent. Third, you will see a lack of ambivalence towards both parents, in which one is viewed as all good and the other is viewed as all bad. Fourth, there is a lack of remorse for the poor treatment of the targeted parent. Fifth, there is a reflexive support for the favored parent, a trained almost behavior. Sixth, there is a use of borrowed scenarios. So what they hear happening, they're taking on those stories as their own. And then 7, there is an independent thinker phenomenon. And then 8, there's a spread of animosity toward the friends and family of the targeted parent. Now, there is some good happening here. To quote this article, thanks to the efforts of a growing number of dedicated mental health and behavioral clinicians and scientists, parental alienation is gaining acceptance as a recognized disorder. It has been proposed as a search term in the ICD-11 QE5 2.0 caregiver-child relationship problems. And the concept of parental alienation is described in the DSM-5, even if it's not listed as a formal diagnosis. The American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry and the American Academy of Pediatrics have both included discussion of parental alienation in society guidelines, which is really, really important. And this is a very serious and overlooked health concern due to the direct negative impact that it has on the individuals involved and the permanent damage that it does to the parent-child relationship, because there is no restoring or repairing what could have been or what was. After that damage happens, time has passed, life has happened, life has passed. So now it is brand new and must be treated as a brand new relationship. And that is an incredible trauma to both parent and child.
Every child who is subjected to child abuse is also, during a custody process, is also subjected to parental alienation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so we have a sad number of children who are growing up with only one parent and one parent's perspective, one parent's side of the family. And those children are also suffering from alienation, which is a form of psychosis, which will follow them into adult life. And it is a mental health disorder that needs to be treated, or it will not clear up on its own any more than a broken bone would.
That's right. That's right. Can you talk to me about some of the ways that it's hidden? That was one of the most difficult parts of negotiating parental alienation for me and the people that I work with, is that hidden nature. And it's what it is for one person, it's going to seem or manifest differently for another, but still impacts us in the same ways. So how is it hidden?
See, there's so many ways that it's hidden. So when it shows up, it looks different. It can look like a child saying very negative things to a parent. It can look like a child cursing or disrespecting a parent in a way in which they wouldn't normally speak to adults or speak to anyone. It can look like a child refusing to spend time with a parent or relative and then saying that they are scared to. It can show up in which a child suddenly starts parroting the views or false allegations directly from the mouth of the abuser. It can show up where a child does spend time with the parent, but is very reluctant or anxious or sad or disassociated or unable to relax and enjoy that time. It shows up like other mental illnesses. But we just don't have the lens or the knowledge to really regularly address it. It's not like a very commonly talked about thing.
That's it. And I think it's important to address here, first of all, when situations where those false allegations are there, yes, it's embarrassing. Yes, it's shameful, whatever, we go through it, but we know that it didn't happen. We weren't abusive parents. But then this parental alienation also shows up. We have our false allegations, but we have to be careful. And what do we do automatically? We believe the child, we go and investigate, we make sure they're safe, right?
Right.
But oftentimes it's used as a weapon. And in times where we want to be sure, because society needs to be sure. We have to sort of step in and say, okay, is there any risk of harm to this child? That in itself creates an additional layer of alienation.
That's
and
right.
Reinforces those false allegations and the ideas and fears. The memories are then being imprinted emotionally again into the brain, and we have another layer on top of
Right.
that hidden alienation.
It keeps happening, right? So
Right.
first, I'm just going to take them. This happens in all relationships. It's not necessarily specific to gender. I'm going to use the male-female example just because I am to start.
Okay.
So it will show up where a man says that the ex-wife shouldn't have the children. She's dangerous. She's an alcoholic. She's unstable. Our first behavior is undermining a relationship that is intact and appropriate.
Yes.
An example would be a parent and child, or a grandparent and child. So these are relationships that are loving and normal and caring normally. This is a circumstance where it becomes abnormal and the relationship is undermined. This is not a relationship in which abuse has ever occurred. There are times when we do need to talk and ask questions and create boundaries, but this is healthy. So parental alienation looks abnormal. When children blurt out negative ideas about a family member that is false or parroted, that's not normal. Children don't want to do that. And it hurts them to do that. When children resist spending time with a parent or relative who they enjoy, that's alienation. So the next thing that happens is the court appoints a mental health evaluation or forensics, or speaks to people in the community, or has child protection get involved. So this child who's going through this process is now living, mom being investigated for something that never happened. And the child takes in the information, parents unsafe. Even these adults are checking. Many adults are now asking me, does mom drink? Child protection came to my home and opened the cupboards and looked around. Everyone's asking about it. It must be real. And it goes from there. It grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And as the child's going through this, their needs, their confusion, their thoughts are completely ignored and overlooked because everyone's busy feeding a delusion.
That's right.
Which is extremely unsafe and causes alienation.
Absolutely. Now, there's something important for all professionals involved in trying to deal with abusive relationships. There's an important indicator at this point. The abuser will be all right with the discomfort and harm that is caused to the target parent.
Yes.
Under the guise of safety. They
will love it. And they will repeat over and over again. They have to be safe. They're putting the child first. And as the parent who has never done any of these things begins to feel anxiety and upset and fear, they will rise and feel happier and happier. They will never feel bad about it. And they do not mind causing the child harm. They are unable to look at the child as separate from them and as a human being. If we look at abusers who cause parental alienation, if we look at them as neurotypical, as having the same capacities that we have for love and empathy and protecting children, we're making a mistake. They do not have that ability. It is about control, destruct, destroy, and that is what they are doing. And the children are caught in the middle.
And that's why it's so, I believe it's so important to look at the behaviors of these dynamics rather than the words that are being spoken. Because while
Yes.
professionals are doing their jobs, that's great. We have to protect ourselves and our children from seeing us go through this as well now, because that's another layer that we've taken on, regardless of whether or not it's really our responsibility to protect them from seeing us going through this false allegation process. We as parents need to. So how do we protect ourselves? By looking at the behaviors that both we and the other party are exhibiting, are showing.
One of the things that, or one of the tools that can be put into place when you are an alienated parent or relative and you are interacting with a child who is alienated is you create what we're calling is a safe space agreement. This is an anchoring tool, and it's an age-appropriate boundary outline that reinforces the expectations and norms of the space that you share together. This gives a consistent and predictable foundation to step out from. The safe space agreement should address emotional and physical safety of all parties and provide space for all parties to act as their stated position. Parents are the protector, responsible for maintaining safety, meeting the needs of the children, and children are free to be and live as children, unencumbered by adult obligations, conflicts, or problems. Since narcissistic parents parentify their children, reversing their roles and using children to take care of their needs, it is very important that in the safe space agreement, parties are obliged to operate in their role only. A safe space agreement is an acknowledgement that your time together is safe, consistent, and stable. This is going to serve as your anchor, and it's going to be, and to children who at other times is surrounded by chaos, confusion, volatility, and rapidly shifting schedules and environments, this tool obliges the parent or grandparent to honor their important role and to reject the desire to clear the air or tell your side of the story. Just to be clear, the safe space agreement is your commitment to put aside everything except parenting your child. At no time in parenting your child does it require you to correct things that have been said about you, set the record straight, or give your side of the story. And that will be one of the hardest things you will ever do. But for your child, you have to do it. The child urgently needs to be loved unconditionally. And that requires adults to be laser focused on the needs of the child, which never entail the adult desire to correct the story that the alienating parent told or otherwise defend themselves against that alienation. The safe space agreement is your commitment to your child, and that's going to mean putting yourself as second. Children will thrive in the safe space. They will ask you if they have questions. The number one way to correct the alienation is to provide love, nurturance, respect, honesty, and consistency. The safe space agreement is a promise, a plan, a commitment. It provides love, and it is a comfort to children caught in the storm of vengeful, alienating parents.